Hey Bob, how you doing? Patrick, Syed. Good to see you guys. Hope you're well. Oscar, welcome aboard. Hope you're well. So as you can gather, I'm not at home at the moment. I'm up north in Manchester, rainy, wet Manchester. I was up here early in the week, went back home, and then came back the next day. So I've been doing a lot of driving. Jonathan, how you doing? Goldstone, that's not good. Wish you well with that, Bob. Hey Phil, hope you're well. Who I missed out? Robert, how you doing? So as I mentioned, I'm up north at the moment. I'll be travelling back to London tomorrow. I came up here for a wedding, for my niece's wedding. Hey Tracy. And it's been really wet. I mean, Manchester generally is known for being wet. I was up here back in about 30 odd years ago. I studied here for 2 years. And all I can remember about the place is rain. Hey up, lad. How you doing, Phil? What are you doing up so late? It's past your bedtime, naughty boy. I'm about to take something out to smoke. I haven't smoked anything yet today. I hope so too, Phil. I should hope so too. So I've got my smoking bag with me. I've actually just been out with the wife for a meal. Went to a Chinese place, a kosher Chinese place, which was actually very nice. We had some sweet sour chicken. We had a little bit of a starter platter as well, which was very nice. There was some chicken satay on it, some sesame chicken, some sesame toast. What else was on there? Some seaweed, you know, the fried cabbage stuff or whatever it is that they do, which is really nice. It's very Moorish. I'm exactly the same. We ate a ridiculous amount of food. I'm sure by the time the live is done, I'll be hungry again. So it's a question of a pipe. I've got two LCS pipes and the Peterson Dracula, which I haven't smoked yet whilst I've been here. But I have smoked the LCS Rosebud, and I've had a couple of cigars while I'm here. I'm not even sure which cigars I've got left. Hey Adam, how you doing? Just listening while he's cooking dinner. Oh, I'll tell you what I did have, is I had a Romeo and Juliet a Toro-sized cigar, not this one, and it was the first tight New World cigar that I've had in a very, very long time. It really wasn't a very pleasant experience, which is so rare, because I'm usually whinging about Cuban cigars. This is another Romeo and Juliet, is Medallas de Oro, which means gold medal, 1875. $21 stone. We're quite similar weight actually. I might be a bit heavier, but very similar. I need to lose some weight. And I do have also a Partagas, a Cuban Partagas, which is like a Morava size. It's probably a 42 ring gauge, I imagine. 42 ring gauge by about 5 inches. Probably be quite nice actually. I did have a bowl of Orlik Golden Slice the other day. And it wasn't too bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't too bad. So, cigar or pipe, what do we reckon, people? "6'2", so he's got a few inches on me. I'm just under 6 foot. Although as old age creeps in, I'm probably shrunk a little bit. Cigar says Bob. Cigar says Adam. Oh, 2 votes for a cigar. No votes for a pipe. Cigar will do, says Syed. Oh well. Cuban or non-Cuban? Look in the Gusto Leder studio bag. Serving me well. Yeah, it's working out just fine. It's a little bit more snug than the previous 2-pipe one, but it's similar size and it crams in a 3rd pipe, so I'm not complaining. There could do with being a little bit more room for tobacco, but To be honest, in the other bag I also just had my own baggies. I don't use the tobacco pouches, I don't like them. The ones with the silicone inserts, I don't really like them. I mean, they make them silicone in order to be neutral, not to impart any flavour into the tobacco, but I don't like the smell of the actual silicone, to be honest. So this, I was going to do a video of this cigar, but what the heck. It's Romeo and Juliet Medallas de Oro, gold medal, 1875, and it says on it, it's got an extra band which says on it star-crossed. Gurkha Ghost. What does it say on here? Quarto? What does that mean? Stark Quarto. Got no idea what that means. It's got a very different aroma to the Real Reserva that I'll be smoking. Those have got quite a Cuban-esque kind of flavour and aroma. These are more New Worldy. A little bit snuffy on the end, but a little bit of a fruity aroma, a bit leathery. Doesn't smell like my regular style cigar that I would go for. Well, I'm not averse to smoking it at more than one sitting. I do that many, many times. That's a good draw. That's the Cigar XO cutter. So we came back up on Thursday, and I've got to say it was a bit of a nightmare drive. The trip usually takes between 3¼ hours and 3½ hours. Instead it took us 6½ hours. It was a bit crazy. The weather was horrible, the roads were wet, and the vehicles were throwing up like a fine mist, and visibility was really, really poor. And we set off at 12 in order so that we should be able to drive during daylight hours, and we expected to get there by 3–4 o'clock, and instead we got there at 6:30, something like that, and it starts to get dark already at 4:35 this time of year. So the last stretch we were driving in the dark, and it was pretty bad visibility anyway. even before it got dark. Well, I guess, Phil, that would have acted as like a punch, wouldn't it? Yeah, go for it, Jeremy. Very mild to start with. The wedding. Why do you toast or burn the end before lighting and smoking? Well, I don't know the official reason, if there is one. But there's two that I'll give you. But when I watch videos of some serious cigar smokers, sometimes they'll toast, sometimes they won't. I mean, when I watch Gemma, I can't remember her surname, from Hunters and Francow, who is the boss. She is the boss of Hunters and Francow, who are the sole importers of Habanos SA. So all Cuban cigars, all EMS, that's English Market Selection Cuban cigars that come into this country come through Hunters and Francow. And she is the head of Hunters and Francow. And I've seen videos of her lighting her cigars. She just lights them normal way. But for me, the reasons are, that I'm aware of, is number one, especially if it's a wide ring gauge cigar. I noticed that with people who are smoking narrow cigars, almost, you know, similar width to a cigarette or a cigarello, a little bit wider than a cigarette, there's no point in toasting it because it just lights up instantaneously anyway, because it's such a small, narrow ring gauge. But with wider cigars, if you try and stick a match to it and you start pulling on it straight away, you know, the initial spot which the match touches or the flame touches, that will light and will start burning, where the rest of the head of the cigar hasn't caught on yet, hasn't burnt. So you toast the whole base of the cigar so that it's all ready to fire straight away. And as soon as you put flame to it, it's going to be more readily accepting of the flame, so that you get a good ember, good even ember all the way around. The second reason is that, as far as I'm concerned, is that it prevents overheating the cigar. So if you imagine you're lighting a cigar and you're holding the flame to the cigar as you would a cigarette, which is literally on the cigar, and you're drawing in constantly in order to light the whole head of the cigar, you could quite easily overheat the cigar and you'll start to already get bitter tastes coming through. Whereas if you toast it, you can toast it and then wait a bit until it cools down, and then you can light the cigar, and you're not overheating the cigar. Put out the ashtray. I don't know if many cigars come with ashtrays anymore, do they? Many cars, I'm saying. Do many cars come with ashtrays anymore? Hey Daniel. I'm smoking a Romeo and Juliet Star-Crossed, it's called. Toro Fuente short story is a very nice cigar, as it happens. Back in the day when I used to buy stuff from Boswell Pipes, I used to get very well looked after by the cigar department. I used to buy from their cigar department at around the time when they employed a new guy to run the cigar humidor, a guy by the name of Archie. And he and I got on really well, and he used to send me some really nice cigars. And there were some Arturo Fuente short story Hemingways, which some of them were quite rare. So some of the really dark, almost black colored ones, some of them were really hard to get, and he would always set some aside for me, which were really tasty, very nice cigars. Generally speaking, Arturo Fuentes, I find them to be, I mean, setting aside the Opus X, because I've never really particularly enjoyed them. But if I'm honest, I haven't smoked enough of them to be able to really get a grip on their whole sort of DNA. But in terms of the regular Arturo Fuentes, like the 898s and the Hemingways, the short stories, very, very nice, very middle of the road. You know, they're a good tobacco flavor more than anything else, a good solid tobacco flavor. I've smoked plenty Maduro cigars, but I think I'm more of a Connecticut, but even more than Connecticut, I prefer sun-grown, generally. For me, sun-grown is a sweet spot, somewhere between Maduro and Connecticut. And you get a nice, you get a nice tangy spice from the sun-grown leaf, I find. Hey McPhil, how you doing? I'm holding this phone so that I can read the messages, because they're too small up on that phone camera, whatever, blah blah. As Greta Thunberg would say, blah blah blah. You like spice in your food, not in your tobacco. I don't like too spicy tobacco either. I leave that for Andrew Sirigliano. He likes some really hot, spicy tobacco. But I find that the sun-growns are they sort of give a nice richness. They're not sort of chili heat or anything like that, but they just give a nice richness, which I really enjoy. Generally speaking, Daniel, Robusto is my preferred vitola, always has been. But I'll smoke Toros as well. Toros are really good value for money. I find that with the American sizes, the difference between a Toro and a Robusto, you get maybe another 1.5 inches in length, The classic Cuban Robusto is a 5x50, so 50 ring gauge, around 5 inches. The American ones are usually 52 or 54 ring gauge, also around 5.5 inches, but they're wider, which I quite like. So for me, Robusto, but I don't know if it's just me, but I tend to find that with the Toro size, the sort of evolution of the cigar and the whole balance of the cigar seems to work better. The way they're rolled, so the blending, the way there's more room for the blending to take shape. I don't know if it's in my imagination, maybe it's just that the size tricks my mind, I don't know, but I just find that the Toro size works better, even though Robusto is my preferred size physically, but I find that the Toros seem to be more balanced than the Robustos. Yeah, you might have a point there, Daniel, about box press cigars. I don't know. I must be honest, Phil, I do like torpedo-shaped cigars, I do. So in the Cuban world, there'll be sort of number 2s. Or belicosos. La Gloria Cubana. Well, La Gloria Cubana make quite a range of non-Cuban cigars. They don't have much of a range with Cubans. A few years back, I was offered access to a collection of cigars that somebody was selling off. And amongst them, the ones that I bought was a box. And I'm kicking myself now that I smoked them. I've got one single one left in my singles box. But I had a full box of 10 La Gloria Cubana LCDH, that's La Casa del Habano release. And they were Maestros, was the name of the cigar. It was a large cigar, a really large cigar. I think they're worth a fortune nowadays. I'm all about cigars that I should have kept, aren't I? Those chief amongst them were definitely the Cohiba Robusto Supremos. That was just, I'm kicking myself. Although, never have regrets because they served their purpose at the time. I bought 4 boxes at the time, at £400 a box for 10 cigars. So each cigar was £40. I smoked 1 box and sold 3 just before my daughter's wedding. I made about £250 profit on each box. Had I hung on to them, they're worth 10 times that now. They're worth £3,500 to £4,000 each box. Not mad? They're worth about £400 each cigar, and I had 3 boxes of them, so that would have been enough to pay for another wedding, almost. And where do you think they went? Give you one guess. Yeah, if you would have kept your old cars, I guess so. Same with everything, isn't it? But we never learn. Because we just hold on to everything that you ever buy. At some point it's going to be worth money. China, exactly, China. A couple of the consignments that I've done in the past, a lot of that stuff went to China. You know, the pipe tobacco. A lot of it went to China. I mean, they provide me a shipping address here in the UK, but definitely on its way to China. There's definitely pre-embargo cigars out there, Daniel, and probably the person who's got the most of them is Edward Sahakian of Davidoff in London. He's got plenty of them. Also worth a small fortune. I mean, his cellar is worth millions. I don't doubt it. Pipe 799. Oh, you mean the extra stem? Is that what you're referring to? I almost brought 799 with, but it's not fully broken in, so I just decided not to. Yep, he's got pre-embargo cigars. I mean, also a lot of he's got Cuban Davidoffs, whereas there's no such thing anymore. But he's got in stock in his cellar Cuban Davidoffs. They stopped doing their cigars in Cuba around, I think, somewhere in the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. Maybe a bit earlier. What did you see recently, Phil? The pre-embargo cigar you're talking about? Oh, the pipe. Which pipe are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about 799, yeah. Yeah, that one had a very nice contrast. Talking about the one with the silver band on it, a small pipe, like almost like a prince kind of shape, like a round oval ball type shape. Vintage pipes, they have a value, but they don't have a huge value unless it was made by some of the masters, you know, and you didn't really have that kind of thing as masters going back to the 50s and 60s, you know. Sixton Iverson was really the first master that was recognized as such, and he was making pipes around the 50s and 60s, but you'd be hard pressed to find a pipe from back then. And I don't know that you'd want to pay a fortune for one of those pipes. You know, it's only later on that his pipes really took on. Yeah, I know which one you mean, Phil. I think only later on his pipes were looking more Danishy, if you like. If you get one of his earlier pipes, they're sought after, but I don't think they go for huge money. Whereas if you were to go for a Beau Nord, maybe a later Beau Nord, or a Teddy Knudsen, these kind of guys, you'll pay a fortune for their pipes, but not vintage. I mean, depends what you call vintage, but pipes from the 50s and 60s, you know, people don't pay money because they're older. Maybe with the exception of Dunhill from the 1920s, maybe. But vintage pipes isn't really of such great value, in my opinion. Yeah, Espang is not really vintage. You know, Espang is of the modern era of pipe making, even though they've stopped making pipes now. But I consider it, you know, you could get earlier pipes, but their earlier pipes compared to their newer pipes, if you had the choice, you'd get the newer pipes because the shaping and the design is much more developed. Whereas the earlier pipes were much more sort of closer to classical Danish designs. Espang is another brand which is about, you know, had you known they were going to stop, you'd have bought. I had opportunities to buy Espang pipes, but I just never pulled the trigger when they were, you know, I could have got for £400, £500. Now, because they've stopped making them, prices have shot up. You know, so you're going to be paying over £1,000 for an Espang pipe, and if it's one of their sort of really good ones, you know, sometimes they've got pipes which are more run-of-the-mill, and you've got some which are spectacular. You know, the really beautiful pipes with beautiful silverwork and that kind of thing, with spectacular grain. So those you'll pay a couple of grand for. I better ash this, otherwise it's just going to go all over me. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of pipes, McPhill, that you'll pay good money for, but none that will really reach crazy money, I don't think, unless it's from one of the masters. Petersons, the ones which go for the most money, are the gold banded stuff. You know, their gold banded pipes are really hard to get, and they go for good money. Of course, you've got, you know, the older Petersons, which will fetch good money, but they're never going to be stratospheric, you know. The old Cap and Petersons, you get some of the shapes which have literally not changed since the late 1800s up to the present day. Their shapes, some of them are still exactly the same, which is quite phenomenal if you think about it. But if you compare it, say, to a £40 cigar, which now is selling for £400, but this is not vintage, you're talking about from 2016. So you're not talking about 30, 40, 50 years, you're talking about 7 years. And it's gone up by that ridiculous amount of money. I've just seen your comment, Phil. People waiting for us to die so they can sell the pipes at a profit. I mean, it must have been very hard for people like Bo Nord to see their pipes going for the amount of money that they went for. While he was still alive, his pipes were going for silly money. So you could order a pipe from him and pay, I don't know what he was charging towards the end of his life, for a commissioned pipe. You know, maybe somewhere between £1,000 or £2,000. I'm not sure. Maybe it was more than that. I honestly don't know. But those pipes, some of them are selling for £20,000-30,000 nowadays, which is just a crazy amount of money. But imagine him being alive now, seeing a pipe that he may have sold, say, for £1,000, going onto the market for £20,000. That must be pretty hard to take. There was a guy, I forget his name now, passed away recently. There was a guy who started up a website where you'd buy a pipe from him, and every time that pipe got resold, the carver would get a percentage. It's a very nice idea, but it just doesn't really work. The only other industry that works in is in the music industry, where royalties go to the original copyright holder. But I don't know any other industry that works like that. You know, if you buy a car, you buy a BMW, you wouldn't expect to pay BMW a percentage every time that car gets resold. You used to see pipes in the 007 movies and in the Bond movies. Q used to have a pipe. What's the best thing that happened for pipe smoking in the last few decades? What's the worst thing? Well, I would say, without a doubt, the best thing that's happened for pipe smoking in the last decade, without a doubt, is social media. And in terms of what's the worst thing, well, probably the FDA, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I get the idea of every time a pipe gets sold, a percentage goes to the carver. That's what I was talking about. I can't remember the name of the guy who tried to do that. I think it was Jeff something. It just wouldn't work, that's all. I mean, how are you going to force people to do that, to record every time they sell it? So they're going to go back on the website and say, I've just sold it again, here's a percentage of the money I just made? Ain't going to happen. Go the Rolex route. What, make them impossible to buy? Won't be much point in that, because carvers out there need to make money. I just don't see it working, Phil. Just don't see it working. As much as it would be a nice idea, I just don't see it working. Yeah, I mean, put it this way, if carvers signed up to the thing, and that would mean that whoever bought a pipe from them would then have to record it every time they sold it, and then the next one, you know, people just wouldn't buy the pipes if they had that on their heads. And even if they did, there's no way of enforcing it either, so. There's a difference. I mean, if you try to think about what's the difference between the music industry and any other industry, any other retail industry, why is it that in the music world, every time a record gets played, the copyright holder, the rights holder gets a royalty, as opposed to every time I put something into the market, I don't get a royalty? There is a big difference. If I release a record, a music record, and let's say it gets played over the radio, millions of people are benefiting from that product at the same time. Whereas if I release a pipe, one person gets to use that pipe. Nobody else is benefiting from it. And there's such a huge usage when it comes to the music industry. There's literally millions of people benefiting from it at any one time, but all the radio stations are benefiting from it, and all the resellers are benefiting from it, and it gets networked all over the world, and it gets played millions and millions of times. You can see the difference. Why that should translate into being, well, in that case, they should get some money from it. It's a question of how much money can be made from it in perpetuity. I suppose that's the reason why there's still money that comes back. Because if, for instance, a hit record, if you were to calculate, say, over a period of, say, 20 years, how much revenue would be made off that record, let's say you calculated it, if it was a hit record, there's probably millions and millions of pounds worth being made off that one record. So there you could understand why the original owner should make some money from that. Otherwise, they would have to increase their prices, and it would be unmanageable. It wouldn't be viable for them to say, when they're selling a record, a hit record, to sell it for £10 million. So therefore, instead of doing it that way, they get royalties. So you could understand that. Well, I think that wouldn't be very viable either, to guarantee a pipe to every single time it changes hands. I mean, and let's say each one of them wants a minor repair. Well, where am I supposed to make my money? By the time it's gone to the 10th person, I've lost money, because let's say I made a couple $100 on it in the first place, and I've had to replace the stem twice and fix the tenon and polish up the thing. Where's it end? I'm not making any money anymore. And each time it changes hands, each time it gets smoked by somebody else, and maybe a guy abuses it, or why should I have to repair a pipe? The only time a carver should have to repair a pipe free, I'm talking about gratis, obviously. The only time a pipe carver should have to repair a pipe is if there were some fault of the carver. No other reason. If it's just wear and tear, why should I pay for that? The idea was a nice idea, because he was trying to promote pipe carving and trying to get more people into it, possibly. And to help pipe carvers make a living, because there are so many pipe carvers out there who just can't make a living from it, and they end up falling away. I think that's changed now. I think that social media is much more powerful. I still don't think a pipe carver can make a living from it. You have to use it as a supplement to your income. Unless you become big time, it's very hard to make a living. Almost impossible. So if you're thinking about going into pipe making to make a living from it, don't waste your time. Unless you're somehow another Tokutomi or something like that, then, or a Bonord or one of these guys, to make a living from it is very hard. Good night, 45. chugging along quite nicely on this cigar. Evening, Prepper Man. No, so the greats were greats before the onset of social media. The only pipe maker that I would consider up there, maybe not in the same stratosphere as Bone Lord, but the only one that I've seen who really makes use of social media is Jeff Graysick. I mean, even Tom Eltang, although he posts on Instagram, he doesn't post pictures of his pipes, generally speaking. I mean, personally, I would put Tom Eltang up there amongst the best, not just because of the designs that he makes and the quality of his pipes, but just purely because he's meteoric in the speed that he puts out pipes. It's just unbelievable. And he's been going at it for, I think, 30 or 40 years now. So those greats really became great before the onset of social media. I mean, Teddy Knudsen doesn't use social media to push his pipes. And these guys have a network of collectors who just lap up their pipes the minute anything is released, you know. Oh, there is another one, which is Nana Iversen, but again, not on social media. Her pipes, you'll see them on various Danish websites. And her pipes don't get snapped up. They do sell, all of them, but not as quickly as you might think. Sometimes I'll see them on the Danish pipe shop, and sometimes they could take a week or two till they get sold. Whereas if you were to put, well, they don't even go on websites. You know, Tokotomi's, Teddy Knudsen, these kind of, very rarely would those go on a website. They would just, they've got people probably, they've got years of waiting list. They probably would never have to advertise ever. The other Dane. Who's the other Dane? Not the same pricing as Eltang. I mean, Eltang is prolific. The speed that he puts out pipes is unbelievable. Are you talking about Jens Tau? Oh, the grey-haired guy. Yeah, that's Teddy Knudsen. That's Teddy Knudsen. No, not Teddy Knudsen. Grey-haired glasses. Winslow? Oh, are you talking about the guy that doesn't smoke? Yes, Winslow? I don't think Winslow is in that. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Usually, I wouldn't really comment on other artisan carvers, but Winslow and these guys are great. They don't make a difference what I say about their pipes. But I wouldn't put Winslow in the same bracket as Tom Eltang, even personally. And he makes beautiful pipes, but his shank caps are beautiful. They are really special. But his shaping is very Danish. I mean, I find it to be very I wouldn't say run of the mill, but you know, nothing out of the ordinary really. I mean, again, I'm not criticizing. He makes beautiful pipes, and some of his high grade stuff, the graining on some of his high grades, and the shaping, beautiful. But just not to me anyway. It's just my personal sort of preference, I guess. They just, to me, they don't seem to be on the same level and the same breadth of design as you know, breadth of imagination as Tom Eltang's. Lots of artisans make pipes for retailers. Daniel, hey Cole, I want a stakeout. Yeah, I'm up north. I'm not at home, so I can't smoke. I'm staying at my brother's house. I can't smoke in his house, so hence I'm outside. I've driven around the block somewhere and just chilling with you guys. I have pipes on GQ Tobacco's website. Lots of artisans have pipes on websites. It's not new. Jason Mouton has pipes on websites, on retailers. Adam, you know, collecting from tier 2 carvers, as you put it, definitely. I mean, that's the way to go for the future. That's why people who have big collections of, say, 100 or 200 pipes from, let's say, Beau Nord, and you think, how on earth could he afford it? It's because he bought them when they didn't cost 20 grand. So obviously, at that stage, he may not have been considered as the best in the world. That is when it is the time to invest. Is when you have to look at the potential of the carver and see his trajectory. See, is he growing? Is he, you know, pushing his envelope when he makes pipes, or is he just sticking with the same pipe shapes all the time? And that's you know, when you see guys who are pushing the envelope and really perfecting shapes that they're making, and you see their pipes improving all the time, and you see that everything that they do about the pipes is improving all the time, then, you know, those are the guys to invest in. You can't always be sure. Sometimes you might get a lame duck. It's very hard to know, to be sure who's going to be worth money. If you're investing it for money, it's probably not the wisest thing to do. But maybe for your children. It's a really difficult question, Daniel, because I've had various websites ask to take my pipes on, and I've had to decline because they just knock you too much, you know. I've had a website in America, a retailer in America, ask to stock my pipes, and they only wanted to offer me 50% of my price. So, you know, if I'm going to knock out basic pipes with preformed stems, and I can knock out 3-4 a day, then yeah, fine, do that. But your exposure that you're talking about is not going to happen, because your pipes are going to be plain and basic. So people are not going to think, oh wow, fantastic pipes. You've got to keep, if you want to grow and you want to sort of increase your name and your reputation, your pipes have to continue to grow, have to continue to evolve and improve. And just knocking out numbers is not going to do that. And to be honest, if you're just going to get some B&M taking on your pipes, it's all well and good, but they're going to have a very, very small market. If you can get your pipes onto a big website like smokingpipes.com, that's a different ball game. Then it's worth taking that hit on the value on what you're being paid, because there you're getting big exposure. So then it's worth it. And you call the shots. You decide how long you want to have your pipes on there and get paid 50% of your value. But if you have a look at the named pipes, the artisan pipe makers that are on their website, there are some big names on there, and they still consider it worthwhile to make pipes for them. So, you know, there are some pipe makers out there who are not interested in having to deal with selling pipes. There's one pipe maker in Germany. Was it Rainer Barbie? No, 1 second, who was it? Can't remember. It might have been Rainer Barbie, I'm not sure. But one of them who, I don't think he makes pipes anymore, he may not even be alive anymore, but one of the German pipe makers who just simply was not interested in having anything to do with dealing with customers. Not because he didn't like customers, but he just didn't want to deal with it. He just wanted to sit and make pipes. Wasn't interested in having to deal with finances, marketing, billing, shipping. Didn't want to deal with any of that. It wasn't his forte. Just wanted to make pipes. So for him, it was worthwhile doing that. Hey Sam. I'm smoking a Romeo and Juliet, and it says on it an extra band which says star-crossed. This is a New World Romeo and Juliet. I don't know what this star-crossed is. It's a fairly mild cigar. Hasn't got a huge amount of flavor, certainly not complex. It's a fairly basic cigar. Why they've given it a title gold medal, I've got no idea. Some unknown country, probably. Jumping that bracket from being a pipe maker that sells a pipe for somewhere between 100 and 200 pounds, jumping up to 400, 500 pounds, that's, I think, one of the hardest things to do. We are in our car because I'm up north. I'm staying at my brother's house up north in Manchester. We came to celebrate their daughter's wedding, and I obviously can't smoke in their house, so I'm out. Hey John. Actually, Daniel, the YTPC preceded anything. The first thing I started on was a pipe, not cigars, although I've smoked cigars in the past, like 20, 30 years ago, but no more than anybody else on the street who wasn't a committed cigar smoker. Just the odd one here or there at a wedding or a bar mitzvah or something like that, but I didn't go out buying cigars. It was only about 8 years ago now. I've said this story many times. About 8 years ago when I went to Covent Gardens, and there's a little tobacconist there, and I used to always have my sort of nose up against the window whenever we went out for a day with the family. We'd go there very often on a Sunday afternoon, and to watch the acts and things like that go on in Covent Gardens. So I would have my nose up against the window of the tobacconist, and one time I said, you know what, I'm going to go and buy a pipe. And I went in and I bought a pipe. And it came from there. It was only when I went on the YTPC to sort of understand how to smoke a pipe that I actually also started playing around with cigars. And it grew from there. It was really the pipes that started first before the cigars. My average prices now are around, I would say around 220 to 250 pounds, with a few which are sort of more upper tier, which will go anything from 290 pounds to anything above that, from 300 pounds, 350 pounds. But it's funny because you just can't predict. I've said this before, you can't predict what's going to sell. I've got a pipe on there now which I had up for 395 because I thought it was an exceptional pipe. Had no takers, and I've reduced the price twice now. I reduced it again tonight, and to me it's a ridiculously low price. It's a 4-star pipe, but it's not just the fact that it's a 4-star pipe, it's just the uniqueness of it. It's a freeform pipe, beautiful stem, and to me it's just worth that money. You know, it's almost to the point where if I put the price down any lower, I might as well just keep the pipe for myself. You know, it's just throwing away my time. If I was to sell that pipe for less than 300 pounds, I'm wasting my time. Then I might as well just stick with traditional shapes, not bother with the more sort of sculptural styles. But I enjoy doing those from time to time. But there is a one in particular tobacco shop around here, but I was going to go on Friday, but I didn't go in the end. I thought I'd go and do a video. Yeah, I mean, hey Jack, how you doing? My commissions start at 225 pounds, that is. So in dollars, what are we looking at? Somewhere just under $300 probably. But on average, my commissions are around 250 pounds by the time they're done. So I think they're still very good value for money. But I don't take money in advance, so that's where I differ from Phil. I don't take money in advance for any of my pipes, really. Very rarely would I take a part deposit, only if I had the feeling that the customer was a bit problematic, which you get sometimes. But I've only literally, out of the 800 pipes or so that I've done, I've only taken part deposits up front once or twice. Or sometimes a customer can't afford to pay the pipe in one go, so they'll pay a little bit up front, and then when it comes to make the pipe, they'll pay the rest of it. So I'll do that sometimes, although I don't like doing it, but I will do it. But generally speaking, for commissions, I don't take money up front because I want the customer to be happy with what they're getting. The last thing I want is a customer to have to be paying for a pipe and not be happy with it. Having said that, I wouldn't want to be making pipes for somebody and then they say they don't like it and then I'm stuck with a pipe. So it's finding that right balance, but thankfully I've not had that problem. Generally speaking, customers have always been happy with the pipes that I've made. Thank you, John. Yeah, I mean, I said that right when I started, was to try to keep my prices not just fair, but also attainable, you know. And even if my prices were to start increasing at some point, dramatically, you know, if demand became as such that I had to put up the price, I think I would still make a cheaper line, because I want my prices to be attainable for across the board. Well, like I say, it's really hard. You can't predict what customers want in terms of non-commissioned pipes. Sometimes I'll make a pipe which sells immediately, and I'll make another one, it'll sit there for 2 weeks on the website. It's all a luck, depending on who's happens to be browsing and what type of pipe catches their eye, you know. Sometimes I'll make a pipe which is really odd looking, and I just think this hasn't worked out, and I'll price it low as a result. Maybe it sells because it's low priced, I don't know. But and sometimes I'll make a pipe which I think is absolutely stunning, and it just won't sell. It's very, very odd. It's very, very odd. A mug of Ovaltine. Everything's gone up, Prepper Man. Everything's gone up. Briar costs have gone up, and now briar also. A lot of the suppliers are sending you briar which hasn't finished drying. You know, you're getting half-dried briar, so you can't even use it. So you have to put it away for 6 months or a year until it's ready to be used. Shipping is a big problem nowadays. Shipping is expensive, and paying the import duties. I don't know why. I still haven't looked into it, but if I'm buying a raw material, I don't know why I'm paying 20% on it. I shouldn't have to pay 20% tax on a raw material. I get that there'd be some tax, but if I'm bringing in briar, I shouldn't have to pay 20%. I don't know why I have to pay that. Yeah, interesting, Jack. I'm finding the opposite. I mean, obviously, because I specialize in 9mm, so people generally come to my website for 9mm pipes. But if I put up a pipe which isn't filtered, I find that they take a long time to sell. But I guess it's because most of the people that come looking at my website are coming looking for 9mm pipes. For me to break into that non-filtered market, I'd have to work really hard at proliferating non-filtered pipes so that people actually know that I make non-filtered pipes as well. I do get commissions for non-filtered pipes, but if I just make one non-commissioned and put it on the website, I find often that it takes time to sell. Jermaine's special Atakia through a Millville. That's nice. That's a nice British combo there. Yeah, Phil, I had that recently. I recently had a batch of briar in, and 2 of the blocks had cracks in them. But I did get a credit for them. Nathan, if you're worried about drilling on the near-ups, stick to straight pipes, then you'll have no issue. The bent pipes, any factory bent pipes, you're risking it being not a great drill. If it's only a slight bend, hopefully it won't be too much of an issue, but I find that even with slight bends, the factory pipes are not great, not very well drilled. But if you're getting half bent, full bent, you're not going to get a good drill. 95% of the time, in my opinion. Yeah, that's true. They're not allowed to export meerschaum anymore. Used to be able to, but they're not allowed to anymore. So you can only buy ready-made pipes. If you're new to pipe smoking, Nathan, I would say get straight pipes. Don't get ones with a very long shank and stem, because that will the center of gravity is so far away from your face they'll be pulling down on your jaw. So I wouldn't get very stubby ones unless you like stubby pipes, because then the smoke might be quite hot. So just get sort of traditional sized billiard, that kind of thing, although you're not going to get that much. With near-ups, they're going to be sort of interesting, more bulbous kind of shapes. But what I mean by that is still get a fairly average length. You know, maybe get between 5 and 6 inch pipe total length. A straight pipe. And if you want to get a bent pipe, for now at least, I would get one from a shop, from a B&M, so that you can inspect it and check the drill before you buy. I haven't made a mortar pipe for a long time, Daniel. I find a lot of people, pipe makers, have stopped making mortar pipes because they're just too fragile. If I get commissioned one, I would make one. I have some mortar blocks, quite a few actually, which are quite solid, so those are heavier and those should be fine. But the ones which are very, very light, like almost like balsa wood light, you don't want to touch those. Yeah, Prepper Man, definitely. You will have You'll definitely have different experiences with different tobaccos and different pipes, no question about it. Every single piece of briar is different and will give you a slightly different experience. Although there is a universality about it, so you could say that a meerschaum smokes differently to a briar, which smokes differently to an olive wood, which smokes differently to a mortar, yes. But even within each genre, I don't know about the others, but maybe not meerschaum. Meerschaum generally is going to be pretty universal, but because it's fairly neutral anyway. But with briar, you will often find there will be a certain universality, but you will still find so many different connotations. You know, with briar pipes from one block to the next, you can have two pipes made from one burl and they'll both smoke differently. You could even have one block of briar, a large block, you cut it in two and make two pipes, they'll both smoke differently sometimes. And it just depends on the shape. It depends on which side was closer to the outside burl of you know, to the if you actually have a look at a freshly cut burl, a briar burl, you know, that you got the root ball and you cut it in half, you'll see a gradation, a tonal gradation in the color of the briar. So you can have almost like a pinky kind of color in the middle, moving on to a beige whitey color at the end. Those different sections are going to smoke differently because of they'll have different densities. And then you've got shapes, you've got bowl sizes, the chamber sizes, the shape of the chamber has a huge effect on how a tobacco smokes. If you've got a U-shaped bowl chamber, or if you've got a V-shaped chamber, it's going to have a huge effect on how the tobacco smokes. The humidity of the tobacco, the humidity of the environment that you're in, you know, the weather, your own personal well-being, you know, all of these things have an effect on how a smoke is. And you could actually have the same pipe, the same tobacco, one day will smoke differently to the next day. So it's a never-ending journey. It's a never-ending exploration, and that's part of the fun. Olive wood will have a different taste. Certainly in the beginning, you might get a bit of an olivey kind of taste. When I've cut up olive wood in the past I've used olive wood for adornments on pipes. I've never made an olive wood pipe yet, but I've used it for adornments. It's actually very nice wood. And when you cut it, you can smell the olive. If you want to start off, if you're early on in your pipe smoking, you want to buy pipes, there are plenty of cheaper pipes that you can buy. If you go onto GQ Tobaccos and you click on the pipes menu and go to GQ Tobaccos pipes, they've got their own branded pipes for between 20 and 30 pounds a pipe, and some of them are beautiful looking pipes. So they're obviously basket pipes. So the stems they definitely will be preformed, but they may not be finished so well. But you know, there's a bit of a yin and yang, because when you're paying £20 for a pipe, you can't expect it to be drilled well, and you can't expect it to have the best finish. So you may not get a great experience, and that may put you off. So it's a bit of a toss-up between spending more money and getting a good experience, or not spending too much money in the beginning because you're just experimenting. What I usually advise people, if they're starting off early, is to get something like a Rossi. Rossi pipes are made by Savinelli, so you're talking about a company that knows what they're doing. And get a straight pipe, and like I said before, of average length, between 5 and 6 inches, maybe a billiard, with reasonably thick walls. and start experimenting with that. And I think that's a good way to start. There was another brand Parker pipes. So Parker pipes, also, 30-40 pounds, that kind of thing. A great way to start. If you go to JJ Fox's in St James's, they've got basket pipes there. They've got fantastic basket pipes, which used to have Parker, so they're like Dunhill. They're pipes in the Dunhill family, which didn't quite make the mark, and they couldn't have a Dunhill. They couldn't be finished off at Dunhills, so they would be finished off in the Parker factory. And now I don't think they stock Parkers anymore. They've now got their own stamp on them. It's the same pipes. They're made at the Parker factory, but they're stamped JJ Fox. And some of them are literally, you can see that they're Dunhill shapes. They are. The Parker pipes are Dunhill shapes. They'll have slightly different finishes, but they're just great pipes. It's ridiculous. You can make yourself a little collection out of those basket pipes, for 30 to 40 pounds each pipe, and you'll have great pipes. Yeah, in America, yes. K. Woody, Dr. Graybo. In America, yeah. Interestingly, here, you'd have had Parker pipes as basket pipes, but in America, they're actually quite valued. Hardcastle as well, yeah. Don't see them so much though. Brigham pipes, yeah. Well, Brigham pipes, they're not seconds. I mean, they probably have a lower line as well, but their pipes are a little bit more expensive. The beard, it's not quite as long as yours, John. My beard is, as you know, my mother passed away a few months ago. So in our culture, part of the tradition is that you don't cut your hair for quite a while. So there's different traditions as to when you can cut your hair again. And one of the times when you can cut your hair in those circumstances is before a festival. So I cut my hair before the new year. I trimmed my beard, not all the way back, but fairly short. And then I decided I wanted to grow it out a little bit more. And so I went to the barber just before I came up for the wedding. And I told him to sort of shape it in a way where when it grows out, it'll grow out. I want to have a kind of a square, nicely shaped beard, not so that it's sprouting from all sides. So that's how he's been shaping it. So he said to me that it'll take another 2 trims. I've been to him twice now, and he said it'll take till now. My wife cut my hair, but the last 2 times I've been to this barber. So he said it's going to take another 2 sessions to get the shape going, and then I should be good. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, my wife may not let me keep it. I mean, she's not going to literally take a hacking blade to my beard, but if she makes too much of a fuss, I'll have to concede. We've got to keep the wife happy. I guess it really depends on how it looks. If it works out well and the shape is nice and she likes the look of it, I guess I'll be all right. So the idea is that this stays thin and this grows out. So we're still not there yet. This is still quite rounded. So I want this to square out a little bit. So we're not quite there yet. And that's good to hear, Prepperman. What tobaccos are you liking so far? Thank you, Prepperman. The mourning process is quite a long haul in the Jewish tradition. It takes time. It's like for the first year, it's quite a life-changing experience in various ways. Not just the personal life-changing experience that everybody goes through, but the traditions that we follow during the first year are quite, let's say, invasive on your life. There are a lot of traditions, do's and don'ts, in my culture during the first year, which are basically ways of showing that you're mourning your loss. And it's part of the Safe Space Cafe, Niagara Falls. Nice. Welcome aboard. It's kind of a... When I talk about it, I often have long chats with people about it, and in reality it's a very, very clever way of helping you go through and cope with the loss of a loved one, because we know generally that your subconscious is a very, very powerful thing, and if you don't deal with it, it can build and build and build, and it can come out in very negative ways. It can come out in mental ways, it can come out in physical ways. If you don't somehow allow yourself to grieve and tell yourself to grieve, you could end up suffering in more ways than one. So I find that when you go through this proscribed process of mourning, it's your conscious telling your subconscious and coping and sort of ensuring that you're going through a process, you're going through a forced process of grieving, which is takes on kind of a physical aspect, but that physical informs your subconscious, and therefore hopefully you end up coping a lot better, and you don't come sort of to a crescendo suddenly and you just break down, you know. Cannabis and tissues. It's one way of doing it, I guess. There are a lot more non-Cubans these days. I mean, there have been already for quite some time, even before the price increases of Cuban cigars. There's been a good selection of non-Cubans now for, I would say, the last 5 years. I mean, they've been a lot longer than that, but in terms of having a good selection, I would say the last 5-6 years, the selection has increased and is quite bountiful. And each sort of outlet will have their range of non-Cuban cigars depending on who's been selling them to them. But if you want to see, if you're in the UK, again, one of my favorite websites is GQ Tobaccos. Very, very big range of cigars, of non-Cuban cigars. If you go onto Cigars Limited's website, very big range of cigars. My Smoking Shop, the truth is they all have a great selection of cigars, Cuban, non-Cuban. There's really no problem getting good quality cigars nowadays, and a very wide, diverse range of cigars. It's just the pricing of it. So when I first started smoking a cigar about 8 years ago, like properly smoking cigars, New World cigars were so much cheaper. but I preferred Cubans, so I bought Cubans, which were cheaper than now. But now, I would say that the non-Cubans are now approaching the Cuban prices of 3 or 4 years ago. So you're going to pay for a cigar that you'd pay $8 for in America. We'll pay between 20 and 25 pounds for it here. So we get mullered, whatever the case is. Yeah, especially after Kia Flake, big thumbs up. I agree with you on that. Solani 633, Peterson Navy rolls, yeah. American Black, oh, okay. Capstan Navy Cut, yeah. Sim Bruno. You got a nice, diverse range of tobaccos there. So yeah, it sounds like you're doing well. You know what? People always quote George Burns because he lived to his 90s and he smoked up to like 10 cigars a day. Always had a cigar in his mouth, and he lived into a ripe old age. But you know, he's probably an exception. I like it that people always quote George Burns, but truth of the matter is, you're going to have plenty of people who don't smoke who also die from illnesses, and people who do smoke who live to a ripe old age, but they don't necessarily prove the rule. Although there was a study which said quite clearly that pipe smokers live longer on average than non-pipe smokers. Whether that's still true, I don't know. Frank Sinatra. He probably couldn't handle fresh air because he was worried about getting shot if he was outside too long. Your pipes are improving nicely, Adam. The last one I saw, although I think I only saw one picture of it, it looked good from what I saw. You guys have been following Phil. I don't know if he's still on now, but Big Phil, he's on his second pipe or third pipe, and his pipe shaping is just unbelievable for somebody who's literally on his third pipe. I've never seen another new pipe maker make pipes. He's still obviously a new pipe maker, still lots to learn, but considering it's his third pipe, I've never seen a pipe maker make pipes like that so early on. Really quite phenomenal. Hey Lee, how you doing? I'm only thankful that Phil at this stage has no plans to become a pipe maker full time, because he'll push us all. Give us a run for our money. This cigar has chugged along quite quickly. I'm getting up to the band if I can find where it starts. There we go. Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. He's definitely got the machine skills. That's been his forte, really. And that's helped him really make very fast progress. Vanilla roll cake, good man. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have the average bloke on the street considering smoking is smoking, regardless of what vehicle you're using for smoking and what it is that you're smoking. You know, there's obviously a stark difference between cigarette tobacco and natural tobacco, no question about it. But the average person on the street is going to be ignorant to the differences and therefore will club them all together, which is what the FDA did in the beginning, which I think they now have agreed to separate to some extent, but even so. It's not going to change the attitudes of the average bloke on the street. Yeah, you can't get a vanilla roll cake here in the UK, not retail anyway. You have to buy it in from Germany or somewhere, or America. As mentioned in one of my recent, I think it was a live, it's going to get harder and harder, and I cannot see the future for all the big tobacco companies. In, I would say, in about 10 years' time, I think there'll be very few tobacco making companies left in Europe. In America maybe, but in Europe it's going to be really, really tough, because Europe's going down a rabbit hole at the moment where it's not going to emerge from in terms of smoking. I'm smoking a New World Romeo and Juliet cigar. LJ Peretti London Flake, one of the LJ Peretti tobaccos that I do like. I'm not a big fan of Peretti tobaccos, but I did like the London Flake, and I got Andrew got me a big one of those big yellow tubs, not the small ones like the 14-ounce or 16-ounce tubs, which is still sealed up on my shelf. I'm going to just leave it there, let it stew. I'm excited to open it one day, but it's I'm just going to let it age. I'm in no rush for it. I don't think it'll be long before the UK bans smoking, new smokers. This is what we were talking about last time. So I think in Australia, New Zealand, and possibly Ireland, they've banned smoking, new smokers. So anybody under the age of, let's say, 18, it's illegal for them to buy any tobacco. And then from then on, they'll never be able to buy tobacco. It'll always be illegal for them. Whereas people who are over the age of 18, they'll be able to continue to buy tobacco. But new smokers, in other words, as people become of age, they will not be allowed to buy, officially they will not allowed to be able to buy tobacco. So the idea is that eventually, as all the old smokers die off, and those following generations grow, get older, they will all be non-smokers, and therefore smoking will die out within a few generations. That's the plan. So I don't see how, once that law comes in, there'll still be plenty of people, there'll still be millions of people smoking, but it will slowly die off. And there'll be other vices. There's the vapes. I don't know what's going to happen with the vapes. I think there's going to be some really draconian regulation coming in on vapes, because vapes is new, but it will happen, and there's no doubt about it that there will be more stringent regulation on vaping. It's ironic that the world is becoming more permissive when it comes to soft drugs, yet they're becoming harder on tobacco. Alcohol, we don't see that being banned. Probably a bigger killer. Yeah, I would agree. Banning it, making it an illegal substance, for me is, it's like prohibition. It's a bit ridiculous. And where are the governments going to get their taxes from? They're just going to tax you somewhere else. I guess the thought process is that it's going to save each country money on the treatments that they don't have to make for people who are suffering illnesses, smoking-related illnesses. But cigarettes is the biggest culprit of that. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying, Prepper Man. That is happening. I mean, is it already going through Parliament? Yeah, and the US is a major tobacco producer, so I think it would be very hard for the government to ban that. Although the first stage of that was the government backing for tobacco farmers. When that was withdrawn, that was what put the final nail in the coffin of McClellan Tobaccos. That was one of the contributory factors to them closing down. So there's certainly things happening in that area in America, but I think it's going to be a long time before anything happens that's going to be having a drastic effect on the overall tobacco market. Right, what are we doing? We're almost at 2 hours. And we're coming to the end of the cigar, so I think, unless anybody's got any particular questions or any topics that they want to raise, if you do so now. Or forever hold your tongue, as they say. I believe that is still out there on the Briar Report, yes. You should be able to see that. Thank you, Cole. Thank you for your kind wishes. So, thank you, Cole. Thank you, Prepperman. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Adam. Piper Wondering. Jonathan Stones. Lee Wilson. Patrick Grant. Safe Space Cafe. Nathan Wallace. Wallace. John B-Dog Piper. Uncle Larry, didn't see you there. Hi, welcome aboard. Daniel Leslie, thank you. Phil Rivara. And everybody else, thank you very much for joining. Wish you all a wonderful week. I will be back home, all being well, tomorrow evening. And hopefully Monday back on the lathe. I have not made a pipe in yonks. Almost forgotten how to do it. Thanks everybody, have a great week. Catch you on the next one.